Good afternoon, Seawolves, and welcome back to another edition of the Stony Brook Media Group. I'm Miles Reese.
And I'm Christopher Schultz. We have a lot to cover today. A 22-year-old man was charged Thursday at his mother's home for a series of stabbings that left 4 people dead and 7 injured in Rockford and Winnebago County, Illinois. Police say that Christian Soto was taken into custody Wednesday afternoon of charges of murder, attempted murder, and home invasion. He faces up to 60 years in prison on each count of first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder, along with up to 30 years for each home invasion. The victims were identified as 15-year-old Jenna Newcomb, 23-year-old Jacob Schupak, 63-year-old Ramona Schupak, and 49-year-old Jay Larson. Soto's mother, who declined to give her name, was in shock, calling him a, quote, loving person and has never hurt anyone before.
New developments today following the collapse of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge due to a cargo ship accident. In addition to the 6 construction workers who have been presumably killed from the accident, 2 bodies have been found and identified as 35-year-old Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes and 26-year-old Dorian Castillo Cabrera. Following these tragic discoveries, Maryland Governor Wes Moore has sent his condolences out to the victims' families, saying, quote in Spanish, "Estamos contigo ahora y siempre," which means we are with you now and always. We will continue to update you on this story as it is a developing story. And now let's head it over to our political corner with Kaiten Muse and Sky Crabtree.
Thanks, Miles. Abortion rights have returned to the nation's highest court. At the center of the case is access to mifepristone, used in nearly 2/3 of abortions. This marks almost 2 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Protests outside raised controversy, but inside the courtroom seemed to be agreement. Justices were skeptical about restricting abortion pills nationwide. Anti-abortion doctors argue FDA's expansions in 2016 and during the pandemic compromised women's health. Conversely, abortion rights supporters say FDA's decision were based on solid evidence and within its authority. During the arguments, the focus shifted to whether the doctors suing had legal standing rather than the FDA's decisions. Conservative justices suggested a narrow procedural ruling to preserve access to the abortion pill. A final verdict is anticipated by the end of June. And NBC has parted ways with former RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel after intense backlash earlier this week. McDaniel's debut on Meet the Press prompted questioning on her suitability. Moreover, she faced criticism for also promoting the notion of the credibility of the 2020 presidential election results. Her recent hire caused tensions inside NBC, particularly with the concerns about bias perceptions. NBC Universal's chairman, Cesar Conde, took responsibility for the original decision in a memo. Hosts on MSNBC praised the network's reversal, saying it was a demonstration of integrity. NBC's staff opposed her role, stressing balance without promoting election denialism. This incident presents the credibility concerns networks face in handling political decisions. Conde apologized for the misstep and pledged renewed efforts for diverse viewpoints.
President Joe Biden announces new regulations on short-term health insurance plans. This follows the aim of reducing healthcare costs without meeting Obamacare's requirements. These plans are now limited to 3 months. Renewals capped at 4 months. The administration stresses the need for clear benefit explanations to prevent misconceptions. This contrasts with Trump's efforts to extend short-term plans, which undercuts the Affordable Care Act. Biden's domestic policy advisor mentions the dangers of what critics dub junk insurance. These plans often lack full coverage, burdening consumers with the unexpected medical costs. The administration aims to rectify loopholes exploited by insurance companies. The move marks another step in Biden's efforts to reinforce the Affordable Care Act. This predates the upcoming November election and will shape healthcare policies for years to come.
Thanks, guys. And now for our international news. Let's throw it over to Vyong Hao.
Thank you, Miles. Russian investigators have a now confirmed death toll count from last week's attack on concertgoers in Moscow. The Russian investigative team confirmed the death of 143 people. However, they suggest the number could be even higher as they have received more than 100 reports of missing people. The gunmen in last week's attack held automatic rifles toward concertgoers and then set the building on fire, causing the roof of Crocus City Hall to collapse while people were still inside. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack, with both U.S. intelligence and French President Emmanuel Macron reaffirming that ISIS was indeed responsible. However, Russian President Vladimir Putin claims that Ukraine allegedly was responsible for the attack in some way. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denied these allegations. After claiming responsibility for the attack, ISIS has since shared video evidence of the members of the terrorist organization storming the concert hall. The United Nations Security Council passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza this week. In addition to the ceasefire call, it demands the unconditional and immediate release of all hostages and to ensure access of providing humanitarian aid for Gaza. The United States was the only country out of 15 chairing members to not have voted in favor of a ceasefire. Instead, the United States abstained. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the United States vote, citing the move harmed Israel's war efforts. Amar Benjamin, Algeria's UN ambassador, praised the passing of this resolution, saying, quote, "The Security Council is shouldering its responsibility." Legalization of same-sex marriage in Thailand may soon become a reality. The country's House of Representatives passed a bill this week that would recognize marriage as a partnership between, quote, two individuals. The bill would also give queer couples the ability to inherit property and grant adoption rights. Moreover, it would also give them the power to consent to medical treatment for their partners who are incapacitated. Daniel Forum Pukunakantana, chair of the Marriage Equality Committee, said, quote, "It's the first step toward equality in Thai society." If the bill passes in the Senate and is approved by its king, Thailand would become the first country in Southeast Asia and the third country in Asia overall to legalize same-sex marriage, following Taiwan and Nepal.
Thanks, Vieng. Let's bring it over to Thomas Pardo and Allison Luna with the Media Minute.
Welcome to the Media Minute, where you get all your updates on pop culture.
Who can call? Ghostbusters. On March 22nd, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire premiered in theaters. Among the return cast members, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson each reprised their roles. I had the pleasure of watching the film the night before its official release, and I had a blast. Plus, they gave out some goodies.
That's amazing, Tommy. Sticking with the classics, the trailer for the Beetlejuice sequel just dropped. The horror comedy hit by Tim Burton is set to release in theaters this September with Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara reprising their iconic roles.
Along with the return cast members, there are several big names joining the cast, such as Jenny Ortega, Willem Dafoe, and Monica Bellucci, who is set to play Beetlejuice's wife. This movie is going to be a good one to watch during the Halloween season.
Absolutely, but we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves because we have to enjoy summertime, which also means Lollapalooza season. They just announced the headliners for this year's festival, set to take place in Grand Park, Chicago.
The Popular Music Festival will run from August 1st to August 4th and will feature performances from more than 170 bands and artists from all over the world. Some notable names are SZA, Blink-182, The Killers, and many more.
I'm very excited to see that Stray Kids is headlining. What about you?
I'm very excited to see Blink-182. They are one of my favorite bands of all time.
Great. Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Media Minute. Tune in next week for our weekly pop culture rundown.
Now let's get to the world of sports with Christopher Yang.
Thank you, Allison and Tommy. This Monday, renowned baseball player Shohei Ohtani accused his former translator, Ippei Mizuhara, of stealing $4.5 million from the Dodgers star to clear a gambling debt. This accusation comes after Mizuhara was mysteriously fired last week. Ohtani, however, showed no signs of distraction as he made his Dodgers home debut, helping lead the team to a 7-1 victory over the St. Louis Cardinals. More controversy on the side of basketball, as Louisiana State University's women's basketball team head coach Kim Mulkey has threatened to sue the Washington Post after rumors circulated that an article on the coach was being worked on. Mulkey alleged that the Washington Post misled two of her former college coaches, and the Post wrote a hit job in the past. This controversy arrived just as LSU played their second-round NCAA tournament game against Middle Tennessee, in which a second-half outburst helped them secure an 83-56 win. A dramatic weekend for sports. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Chris. And now let's turn it over to Angelique Powell with our STEM segment.
The presence of a highly pathogenic avian influenza virus, commonly known as bird flu, has been found on recent tests of cattle milk samples at 3 dairy farms. The United States of Agriculture assured the public that there is no risk to the safety of the commercial milk supply, despite these findings. Measures are in place to divert and destroy the milk from the affected animals, ensuring it does not enter the supply. The USDA also mentioned the pasteurization process which milk undergoes effectively eliminates any viruses, bacteria, or other microbes. On Friday, OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT, is now offering a tool to recreate someone's voice. The company's new system, Voice Engine, has the ability to recreate a person's voice from a 15-second recording. The recording does not even have to be in the speaker's native language. The engine can recreate the speaker's voice into Spanish, French, Chinese, and many other languages. OpenAI is not sharing the technology more widely because it's still trying to understand the potential dangers. This comes all after OpenAI has developed programs like Sora, which can make quality film from text, and DALL-E, which can generate images from text in addition to the popular ChatGPT. On Monday, a study was published in JAMA, a medical journal, which reveals a sharp rise in the use of abortion pills obtained outside the formal health system. Following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the research conducted by Dr. Abigail Eichen and her colleagues found that from July to December 2022, the average number of monthly abortions using such pills increased from 1,400 to 5,900. This surge offset a decline of about 32,000 abortions within the formal healthcare system during the same period. The study also highlights a trend observed globally. When faced with anti-abortion laws, individuals will often turn to solutions outside the traditional healthcare.
And that's all the updates we have for you this week. I am Christopher Schultz.
And I'm Miles Reese. Have an amazing weekend, Seawolves.